Okay, so we still have a few more people that are going to come on board, but I think we'll start to kick off here straight away. So, hi everybody, how are you? Thanks very much for joining in today. I hope all are keeping well. Some of you may already know me, some don't. My name's Howard Murphy. I'm Business Development Manager here at DB Computers. You're all very, very welcome. Today, our 30-minute session will be covered by both the founder of InShip, Mr. Adrian Kellan, and Managing Director Walsh, where they'll be demonstrating InShip, automated accounts payable web application for Sage Accounts. So, as you know, at DB, we're always looking to alleviate and automate as many manual processes as possible. I mean, InShip is a superb solution for those that are processing a lot of supplier invoices every single month. It picks up invoices from your supplier's emails and then pushes the data on. It's also suitable for complex approval processes and removes the need for the business to handle, distribute, or file or store paper invoices. So it's a very strong solution, and we've been working very closely with Adrian over the last 3 years, and InShip it has proven very popular with existing customers in this regard. So look, InShip is a superb solution for those that are processing lots of supplier invoices every month. So invoices from your supplier's emails to your Sage Accounts package. It's also suitable for complex approval processes and removes the need for your business to handle, distribute, or basically push the stuff in. Without further ado, let me just introduce Will Walsh, the MD. Here he is.
Thanks, Howard.
And of course, Adrian there as well.
Hi guys. Hi Howard.
Howard, thanks a million.
No problem at all. So look, I'm just going to hand over to Will here. Will will pick it up straight away. And look, we'll if anybody has any queries, feel free to send them on, and we'll pick them up towards the end.
Thanks very much, Howard. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your time, taking the time out of your busy day to have a look at our presentation. What we're going to try and accomplish today is on the webinar is just to give you a flavor and a feel for what InShip can do and what benefits it can bring to your business. We are going to try and be very strict on the time, so I know you all are busy. There is a Q&A box at the bottom. We'd like, if you wish to ask questions, just pop them in there. I will be keeping an eye on that, and I will try and answer as many, or we'll get Adrian, hopefully, to try and answer as many as we can. There's quite a large audience today, so we may not get to all of your questions, so we will individually get back to you after the presentation. So just if your question isn't answered here, we will answer it following. Okay, so myself, Will, I'm the Managing Director of InShip. I'm joined here today by Adrian Keelan, who is the founder of InShip. He's also a qualified accountant by profession. Adrian has designed technical solutions over the years to assist quite a lot of companies using the technology to improve processes, drive through change, cost reduction. So I'd like to hand over to Adrian, and I will be popping your questions to Adrian as we work through this presentation, so we'll hopefully flow. Thanks guys. Adrian, over to you.
Okay, basically just to start off with, sort of where did the idea from InShip come from? Sort of originally I got the idea from InShip when I was working in England. It was actually 30 years ago, and back then Tesco's, who we supplied, used to have us enter our invoice data through a dial-up on their computer system, while that company and all small businesses like my father, who had a similar shop to Tesco's but just a standard corner shop, were entering everything manually. So I sort of said to myself, there has to be a better way of doing this. And then I sort of parked the idea for quite a while, dealt with other issues, and then moved on. So in reality,
sorry, yeah. So you were really. That sounds like you were kind of looking for a quick data capturing tool, but InShip does so much more than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, in reality, that's true. So basically, when you actually look at the process of an invoice, it goes through an awful lot of different processes, and those processes change from company to company. This slide here sort of gives you an idea of what actually happens here, but like if you actually think of the core of it, an invoice, it's received in, it has to match or join up with something else, and then it needs approval. But if you look at doing that on an automatic system, the generation happens automatically by your supplier. The approval is a manual job, which is a tick of a box within InShip, and then it's pushed up to an accounts package. But when you actually break that down to a manual process, you have generation of the invoice, you have to print it or open the letter, you then need to sort them, you then need to manually match that with a GRN, send it to the right person to approve, enter that data, and then you have the first automated task, which is basically a system approval. Then you file the document and you reconcile it. So looking at basically what happened manually, what I sort of saw from that is the main thing that happens is basically the approval process. And an invoice has to basically be routed and go to the person who needs to approve it. That approval can be automatic through a GRN, or it could be that it needs to go through a tree based on basically different rules that different companies have. So what InShip has built is a sort of a flexible tool that allows us to actually send the invoice where it needs to go based on loads of different criteria, which are actually quite easy to set.
That sounds very dynamic, Adrian. And how does the process itself work?
In reality, the process starts and sort of about getting an invoice into InShip. There's three ways of doing it. There's the first way, which is the best way, which is Howard mentioned there at the start. You just basically get your supplier to invoice the email to a dedicated email account. InShip grabs that invoice every 5 minutes. So InShip basically works throughout the night. Its busiest time is actually at lunchtime, because a lot of people do invoice runs at lunchtime. The second way of getting the invoice in is basically if it's emailed to someone's email account, they can email it on to InShip. Or there's a drag and drop option. So if someone sent in even a hard copy invoice, you can scan it and drag and drop it into the system. So in reality, what you have is you have a number of different options, but the best option is to get your supplier to email the invoice into the system.
And when the invoice then actually comes in, when it comes into InShip, what's happening?
A lot of processes happen when it comes in, but I'd sort of probably just cover this sort of basic processes. The first thing is it's actually read 5 times. So we read it through 5 different processes. But with the main process we use is we actually read what's called the metadata within the PDF. So a machine-generated PDF has code behind it. So we're actually not reading what you see. We're reading what was basically sent to the PDF generator to create that document. We can OCR as well, but that's the main way we actually do things. Then we basically check to see if we've basically seen the invoice before from that supplier. And if it is, it basically follows the rules that have been set up for that supplier within that company, or basically otherwise it goes into new documents.
Okay, that's great. So you're checking immediately for duplicates and things like that. That's brilliant. And is it difficult? So like, how do you go about setting up an invoice, Adrian?
In reality, like the system actually helps you quite a lot on that. Like there's 2 ways of setting up an invoice. I'm going to go through them. The first way I'm looking at here is a template way. This way, basically, you're going in, you're sort of saying it's the first time you've seen a Lines of Linux invoice. The system will actually draw boxes around as much of the information that it's been able to actually ascertain, as in it would find the invoice number, the date, maybe the purchase order number. And then after that, basically, you review that. In this particular case, we're also drawing a box around basically the delivery date. And that's because we're going to do something special with that. So if an invoice comes in and it says Raheen on it, and it's from this supplier or a group of suppliers, it will go to basically the manager who's looking after that to approve, Rod. So you might have 20, 30, 40 branches, and it's going after those different people to approve. Now this is shown it on delivery address, but we also do it on engine numbers. We do it on asset numbers. We do it on project numbers. We do it on PO numbers. So basically based on a specific piece of information, this invoice will go off to that person to approve. But to grab that information is a straightforward drawing a box. Here we're also basically grabbing the line items off an invoice. We're doing that so that we can watch out for any price increases. So like imagine the power of doing that. We're seeing if something goes up in price, we're actually comparing it against the last time you bought it off that person, which could have been 2 days ago or 2 years ago, and letting you know there's been a price change on that. You also can code nominal ledger based on a line item. You can also search based on a line item and report based on line items. So there's lots of flexibility of what you can actually do on that. So the second way of actually setting up an invoice, that's a template way. The second way is an automated way. So what happens here is these are the invoices that are in new documents. But basically, the system automatically reads what's on the invoice here. So you can see in the far right-hand side, we've read what's there on that particular invoice. No data entry is done. Nobody's actually done anything. And if you're happy with that, you just basically press save, and that will process the invoice or and send it on to the approver. Or if you can actually approve, you basically hit save and approve. So that allows you to set up basically invoices in 2 different ways. And this way is sort of used for different things, once-off invoices, but it's also used for bad scan documents and stuff like that, that you can't actually set a very strong template up, but still you want to be able to process them and push them through the approval chain the way you want to do everything else.
Excellent. It's great functionality. And Adrian, you know, we've all seen it. What happens when we have an invoice with an issue or there's something wrong?
Well, like if there's something wrong with an invoice, like the totals don't add up, it's an old invoice or if it's a duplicate invoice, we actually just take it out of the flow, we put it into a separate section, and you can actually see it from there. So you can actually decide what you want to do with that particular invoice, whether you want to delete it or what. And what's really key on that, like the duplicate invoices, I've seen in organizations, duplicate invoices go through the whole approval process to be rekeyed into a computer. When the person hit enter, says, no, you've already got that invoice. It's done right at the start, and we actually give you a link to the other invoice. So it actually lets you know, hey, this is the other invoice, that's the same amount. So you got a lot of power very quickly. It's all about speed. It's all about basically giving you the power that you don't normally have.
Fantastic. And I guess we all know the real pinch point on invoicing is the approving of invoices.
So basically that's what the whole system about InShip is about, actually removing the processes and actually just pushing an invoice in for approval. And we're going to sort of look at two different types of invoices here. The first one is a nominal ledger invoice, i.e. an invoice that doesn't have a purchase order and a GRN to back it. And then we follow that up by looking at a GRN invoice. So it's just 2 different ways. Like, so they basically flow from one from the other when you're approving invoices, but they're slightly different when you actually have a look at them. So I've actually looked at an invoice here. This is an approval invoice. If I click around, I can see the actual invoice. But just basically, these first 2 line items are going to different nominal ledger codes because we've seen the items before and we've recoded it. That invoice is going to a different nominal ledger code because it's got basically a custom routing piece on it. It's also showing you that there's basically price increases. So we've actually identified price increases, and we're actually then drilling down into the price increases and seeing the movements of these particular items over the last while. Now, this is all on a PO, on a nominal ledger invoice. You've done no data entry on this. It's just actually captured that. So you get an awful lot from a little, but if you just want to approve that invoice, it's just a matter of clicking up the top button here, approve it, and that's the work done. But that's the AP work done as well as the approval work. So you're actually getting an awful lot by just actually clicking on that, which you can also reject or put an invoice on hold if you have a problem with an invoice, and that will send it back to the supplier and give them basically give them knowledge that you put it on hold. You just click a button, it will generate an email saying, dear sir, blah, blah, blah. You add a 1-line comment, overcharging line 3. We basically attach the invoice to the document, and that's all you need to say. So it's actually very fast to deal with queries in relation to that. In relation to a nominal ledger invoice, it's slightly different, but a lot the same. The first thing is, on all invoices, you can clean it up. So this is a 2-page invoice that's only eight lines long. We're able to clean it with a click. But you can see here that the GRN is matching the PO items. And you can also basically add predefined codes. You can add predefined comments. You can add freehand comments to an invoice. And we're letting you know that something's the first time we've seen an invoice. You also get the price check on an invoice. So you can see that you're actually getting an awful lot. But if we just sort of stop for half a second and sort of see, what we have here is the full details of the GRN on that PO that's matching against what we've actually purchased. This particular version, we're actually only matching the total, but we actually can match on a line item basis. So if there's a difference, we can drill into that. We're also basically showing you all the other GRNs that are related to that particular PO. You can drill down into those other GRNs, and you can actually generate a report to actually see what's actually happened on that PO when you have a bit of a problem. So like, it's all about trying to put the information, put the power right in your hands. And the majority of the time, you're just, yes, that's okay, yes, that's okay, yes, that's okay. But when there's a problem, you can search into it. Even like, just to give you sort of one of the features I haven't actually shown you here, if you double click on a line item, a product line item, it will do a search for that. And it's actually quite amazing just doing a search for that and finding that you could have bought that cheaper off somebody else. It sort of starts to give you that power, very simple. And I've done it on a few training courses, much to the embarrassment of people, just double click to show them how it works. And then lo and behold, you get basically a page of, whoops, we could have bought it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
But sort of, as I say, if you're happy with the invoice, just approve it, or you can reject it, put it on hold. But if it's not for yourself, you could send the invoice off to somebody else to approve. So you get a full train. But these rules can be set up. They can be very strict. Some organizations have a sequential rule that basically it needs to go through these people one after another. These are normally for very big invoices, or it might be able to sort of, Adrian or Will can approve this invoice. It doesn't matter who approves it. Or it can be set up that Adrian has to approve, Adrian and Will have to approve it, but they can do it in either order. Or it could be Adrian has to do it first, and then Will has to do it. So you can set the thing up in an awful lot of different ways that sort of reflect how you want to do things. And it's all about making sure that the job is done right. We have sort of some people that are using, that would use the predefined comments as an actionable predefined comments for recharges. So if there's a recharge on an invoice, you can say, okay, predefined comment recharge, that will lead to an action of the invoice going to somebody else. And they have forced to say what invoice number it was invoiced on. So you don't actually miss out on recharges. I actually did a job in a really big company, nothing to do with InShip, and I discovered that they were missing somewhere in the region of 60 to 75% of their recharges. Absolutely huge figures. So it's all about pushing as much information in front of you when you're making that decision as possible.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And I think it's worth highlighting that all of this information has been captured without a single keystroke. Nobody's data entering anything, which is
correct.
Correct. So we've got the invoice in, Adrian. We've coded it. We've got it, the invoice now approved. So as far as the invoices is concerned, we're kind of finished. So I guess what's next?
In reality, what happens is all of the invoices go to an upload section, and you bulk upload. This can be diarized, not normally with Sage, but the normal thing is you do a file once a week. Depending on the organization size, like people are doing thousands of invoices a week, so they do it every day. But most people are doing upload once a week, once every 2 weeks, twice a week. And we're basically that one bulk upload, it pushes all the invoices into the Sage package. If it's a PO invoice, it will actually the invoice will go in and will basically complete the PO, mark the PO as complete, and generate the invoice on the creditor's ledger. Otherwise, it just basically creates a creditor's ledger invoice. We also sort of allow you to decide what information you want to push into the notes. Our standard is basically a link back to the invoice, but you can say, listen, if anyone adds a comment, I want the comment to be added. If someone adds a comment, do this. If someone doesn't do that, do this. So you can set up, like once within region, you can set up a rule set to actually follow that through. So that's up to what you want to do.
Okay, and Adrian, just while you're there, I just got one quick question whilst we're on the subject. We might as well just answer it as it arrived there. Mike is asking us, does the invoice approver need access to InShip Sage?
They don't need access to Sage, they need access to InShip. I'll probably answer sort of a wider question on that. We have multiple user levels within InShip. So you could give someone access and they only can ever see invoices that have been sent to them for approval. So if I went into the search, which I'll show you in a few minutes, if I went into the search and did an open search and I was an approver and I was only ever sent 2 invoices to approve, my open search would return 2, while Will's open search might return 2,000 invoices, but I can only ever see 2. So yes, to approve an invoice, you have to have access to InShip, but that access can be locked down, and we have multiple levels of doing that, but they don't need to have access to Sage. So you're basically, and that's why this is what's really nice about InShip, that it's separate from the accounts package, because I know people have an element of fear, and I would too as an ex-finance director. I would have an element of fear of non-trained people sort of going around the accounts package unless it was set up right.
Yeah, so, yeah. No, great question, Mike. Thanks a million. So, Adrian, that's invoices. So, you know, it's not just invoices. We can there's other document types that we can handle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the first obvious one is credit note, which is in reality sort of the negative of an invoice.
Yeah.
And we also have some proof of delivery, or it's normally actually used for a certificate of conformance control. So you can set up a supplier that requires actually backup documentation. And you can set up the system that basically you need to send in the POD, and the POD will match with the invoice. But we've also basically got standard backup documents, like the one I tend to see an awful lot is an invoice for fire, and then the certificate that's the invoice for looking after fire extinguishers, and then the certificate to say that we've done it. Nice place to file them together. You'll be able to find them for all time. We paid for it, and we got a certificate to confirm that we've done it. And we've also got basically file-only documents, which are basically documents that we can capture special pieces of information on it, and it's normally set up for some people's needs. But the obvious other document, obviously, is the statement. So when the supplier statement comes in, we grab off the statement the statement date, invoice number, and value, and we match them against InShip. And we actually leave you a link so you can actually link back and forth between the invoice and the statement. But at the same time, what we're doing is a statement reconciliation. When I would have clicked reconcile on this invoice, or this statement, sorry, if there's any missing invoices, I had the option of actually sending an automatic email to the supplier looking for that missing invoice. Also, the one great thing that you're doing here at the moment, if someone's doing a statement reconciliation, you're normally only referring to what's in Sage at this moment in time. With this, with InShip, you're also referring to what's in your organization, and that can help you actually put together your accruals file at the same moment in time. So you've got a lot of stuff. You got it's matching. We're matching between the invoice and the statement, and there's a link back to it. So it's actually quite a powerful tool.
Very important actually to know the value of invoices that might be sitting around your organization and not necessarily in the system, so you don't have a view of them.
Yeah, like I love this. This is the first time I demonstrated this. It was in beta. I actually went to a company that was my main beta company, and I owe them a debt of gratitude for basically sticking with us when we developed the system. But the first time we did the statement reconciliation, I asked for the supplier, and they basically gave me a supplier that was 17 pages long, and that's 40 odd invoices per page. I clicked reconcile on it and waited a couple of minutes for it to do its job. And it found every invoice, did the reconciliation, showed the guys where everything was, and actually sort of say, listen, this is what the report it would be for the missing stuff. And at the end of it, I turned and said, how long would that normally have taken you to do? And the guy said it would have known that normally takes. I did that yesterday actually, and that took me the morning. And the guy that worked with him had the most interesting comment, and he says that normally would have taken you much longer because you're normally missing 30 to 40 invoices that you ask for copies of, and those invoices are distributed around what's quite a complex approval process in that organization. And so if you just think the statement reconciliation, how much time that alone actually saves them is incredible.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting you just landed there, Adrian, because I've just had a question from Helen who's saying, you know, how do you handle lost invoices?
Well, in reality, you don't really get lost invoices. Probably I'll answer that question in a slightly different way. Is basically sort of the timing is good. Actually, obviously, sort of.
You're paying attention.
And basically, I was just actually going to go on to search. Like sort of on like at this moment in time, my profile picture, you always take the mick out of me on it, has me standing in front of a filing cabinet full of invoices that I actually took in a customer's premises. But searching for an invoice couldn't be easier within InShip. You've got 20 different search options. You can filter through those search options to actually narrow down to exactly what you want. And so one of them, you can actually just do what date I received this between this date or that date. You can find it that way. You can find it from the invoice number, or sorry, from basically the email it was sent in. So there's loads of different options that you can do it. But our search is so much more powerful than that. And we've just done a quick search there. When you actually click search, the minute you click search, you get a report button. And you can then actually turn your search criteria into a report. And that search criteria report can actually go down to the line items that are on a particular invoice. So if, for example, you want to look at, I'll give you a really bad example. It's nice to give bad examples. If you want to look at how much money you've spent on stationery in a year, that's great. But if you actually go and do it through InShip, you can get a report that tells you how many pens and rulers and where you're actually spending your money on stationery. And this other report that we're sort of looking at here is letting you know where all the invoices are and who's basically looking to approve an invoice. So you can actually see where the invoices are in the organization, and you can make sure basically that the people that need to approve an invoice have it, sort of it's with them. Have they approved it? No, they haven't. But like, so at the same time, they will get a reminder email to say, listen, you've got 10 invoices waiting for you to approve. Can you approve them? The report there, you can see actually, sorry, it just actually goes quite quickly on this snippet of the video. It actually shows you the date that the invoice went to them for approval. And so you know how long it is with them.
Okay, so there's no escape. If you're sitting on an invoice, everyone knows.
Well, you can't say I only got it, unfortunately. So all the MDs who basically say I only got that.
Yeah. No, never happens.
So I've lost half the audience with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and actually, just on that, we have quite a large audience, so we're getting quite a lot of really good questions. Some of them are quite specific, so I think it might be better to deal with them offline, guys, if you don't mind. I'll pick the more sort of general questions that a lot of people would have the same type of issue or the same type of question, if that's okay. So Adrian, just a couple of the questions I'll just pick off there. I'm being asked about integrations. Most systems, they need to talk to each other. Where does InShip stand on integration?
InShip, like with Sage, InShip has been integrated to Sage like really from the start. So we integrate with Sage 200, we integrate with Sage 50, both C and non-C, and we also integrate with another 30 odd accounts packages. So we actually have a widespread on integration. And so depending on the accounts package we integrate, you're looking at, there's a good chance we integrate with them. If we don't we actually like it just as much when we hear we're not integrating with something, because we'll actually sort of talk to the people who write the package and try and actually sort of form a partnership and bring that together. And just to give you an example, I think at this moment in time, like sort of, I know today I have had 2 calls with new accounts packages that want to integrate with InShip, and we're working our way through the process. So we're always adding, and it's because we don't is not a disadvantage.
Okay, great. I'll give you a nice easy one this time, Adrian. It's a nice question from Alan. Does InShip work on mobile devices and iPads?
It works on iPads very well. You get the full functionality on iPad. I was actually using it on iPad last night. We did an upgrade, and I was too lazy to go upstairs to my laptop into the office, and I just used my my tablet. It wasn't actually an iPad, but I used the tablet, and I was checking a couple of things on the site yet, and basically happy days. It works on that. It also basically has approval function and search functions on mobile devices. We've cut down. We've cut down the functionality just to sort of give what people want on the go, which is basically approving an invoice on the go and possibly searching for an invoice on the go. It's not the full functionality.
Okay, and I suppose it's slightly it's a nice time to ask this question, which has popped in. Any security issues around InShip then?
Firstly, InShip is like sort of a lot of the information is partitioned, so it's the information and the links between companies and the actual invoice is actually quite separate. Everything is highly secure. We only host, excuse me, we only host InShip on sort of on top line servers. We basically deal with Microsoft Azure. We deal with Google. We host on DigitalOcean as well. So we actually have 5 different servers processing. They're all basically they're all the top notch guys, and at the same time, like sort of all traffic between InShip and ourselves is encrypted. Sorry, between ourselves, between basically a user and InShip is encrypted. I apologize.
Fine. Okay. And again, I just want to repeat that we are getting some really good questions from a lot of people, which is fantastic. Thank you. We're not going to be able to deal with them all here because obviously we promise people we keep it brief, but we will answer these questions and we will reply back to you directly. Just Adrian, maybe how does the InShip work? How does the support work on InShip?
Basically, sort of, we're an Irish company. We're an accessible company, so you're not dealing behind the shroud. You will always know who you're working with. So, if you're starting with InShip, you're given a person to actually report to, a customer support person who will always be your main person to deal with. They will take you through the setup process, and the InShip will be set up for you. At the same time, we have 40 odd training videos. And what they will do is they'll actually set you up on InShip and do an element of training with you. We normally would suggest that you view a video before you actually do the training, and then basically the training takes place. We actually video the training, and so that you actually have a permanent record of actually the discussion that took place. We video it, and because the fact that you've viewed a video beforehand, you've actually got a better section of a better selection of questions, hopefully, are more particular to your organization. Okay. At the same time, we've just I think it's going to be the end of this week. We're going to actually fully launch it, because the fact that we upgrade ourselves and changed our videos. We've actually decided to change our manuals, and we've basically got a number of manuals that are going to go live as well. We have manuals, but we're actually going to update them all. We're just going through the final edit of them, and they're going to go live basically the end of this week. So you have quite a lot. As well as that, as part of the onboarding process, I hope I'm not confusing too many people here. Part of the onboarding process, we actually do the template setting for the first few invoices for yourself. And that's the first few invoices, depending on your organization size. It normally represents 75 to 80% of your invoices. So that template setting process is actually normally covered by us.
Okay. Thanks, Adrian. Let you have a rest for a second, because I think Howard may have a question. Howard?
Hi guys, how are you? Don't worry, I wasn't outside getting a tan or anything. I was listening in. You just don't have to be looking at me when I'm not saying anything. Yeah, no. Yeah, look, again, look, we're going to try and answer all the questions specifically after the event as well, and also to point out that, stop me if I'm wrong, Adrian, we're recording this today, aren't we?
We are. I was told that it automatically records, so somebody will be sacked if it's not.
Yeah, no, it is recording. I can confirm that.
So we'll send out a link for people if they need to have a look over it, if they missed anything from the start as well. So look, there are a couple of other questions. I think, look, just before we actually wrap up, I think it'd be no harm in actually getting through one or two of them, if that's okay. So from Quiva here, Quiva's asking, do POs need to be issued through InShip, or does it pull them from Sage, or what way does it work?
Oh, the answer is yes.
There you go.
No, but I'm going to answer it a little bit. InShip actually has its own PO system within it, which is based around basically approval, and it can be your standalone PO system if you want, and you can use it. And some people use it in parallel. In other words, they get their MLP or their goods purchasing from Sage, and they do incidental purchases through InShip. So the answer to the question is, as I said, yes, you can actually, the POs, if you're currently doing purchase orders in Sage, that's the best place for you to be doing it. We'll actually advise people more not to use InShip purchase order system than we do actually advise them to use it. because if you have a strong system within Sage or within whatever accounts package you're working with, you're best using that.
Okay, very good, excellent. Okay, I think we'll just take maybe one more but before we finish up here. We know everybody, we've taken up everybody's time here and we really appreciate it. So one of the other items in here we've got from E.B. Mullen-Sweeney, who says, apologies if it's already been asked. They've 10 companies each with a Sage account. Some companies have the same supplier. So if they receive 3 invoices from the same supplier for 3 different companies, how does InShip ensure invoice ends up on the correct company account?
The first level of doing that is you normally say to your supplier, listen, here's a different email account for the different companies and you should be sending it to that. You can put a checker in that within the system to actually, it's within the custom routing option that sort of says that if it sees a wrong address, as in probably the wrong delivery address or the wrong invoicing address, if it's multiple companies, it will actually take that invoice out and you can then basically get that invoice to be forwarded on. So yes, you can put a double check into it, but the starting basis would you try and stop the problem from happening, i.e. Sage is the supplier for company A, go here, company B, go here, company C, and they'll have Sage or something like that, and they all be able to set up different email addresses for different invoices, but you can put an overall check in there to make sure that doesn't happen.
Excellent. All right,
okay.
Very good.
I think, Howard, for time-wise, we'll just kind of wrap it there. There is a lot of questions, so we promise we will come back to everybody and we will answer these questions. We will, as we've just said there, we will also be sending out a copy of this webinar. We have recorded it, and also a follow-up email just to get your feedback and see what you think and see if there's any further steps or anything else you'd like us to do for you. So look, I think it's time to let you guys off to lunch. I'd like to thank Howard and indeed DB Computers and Ian. I think Ian is there somewhere in the background.
He is, yeah.
Just to thank you for facilitating this. I think it's been very, very useful. Adrian, that was fantastic. Thanks a million. And again, to the attendees, thank you very much. Hope it was useful. Have a nice lunch. It's a beautiful afternoon and we'll speak again soon. Thank you very much indeed, folks.
Thanks again.
Thanks again.